Every hour right here on KHOU 11 Plus. But before we take you to the live rally, we want to wish you a warning. Obviously, we're going to be taking you through a live demonstration, and our crews in the field will be doing their very best to avoid showing anything that could be considered offensive. Now, we've got live team coverage this afternoon. Orko Manna is live at City Hall, where protesters will begin their march later this afternoon. But first, let's go back over to Michelle Choi, who was at the rally at Discovery Green earlier today. Michelle, how are things looking where you are today?
Hey there, Devon. It is much quieter, I can tell you that. Less than an hour ago, this entire stretch of McKinney Street up and down here outside Discovery Green was filled with hundreds of protesters, you may recall. They just had this area jam-packed with signs, t-shirts, people wearing costumes. It was definitely a huge gathering. Now, all those folks that crowded into this area actually made their way down Walker Street and took a 16-minute march down towards City Hall. That is where they are now with the main rally that just got underway here at 2 o'clock and is expected to last through 6 p.m. Again, outside City Hall with a secondary march starting at 4. But let's give you a quick recap of sort of what we saw out here. Here's some video we rolled on earlier, giving you a look at the full of energy and people that we saw standing shoulder to shoulder, holding signs, waving flags, chanting, and really showing up in all kinds of ways. We saw young couples, families with kids, even a group of grandmothers who told me they were out here fighting for democracy and their grandchildren. Now, some came dressed creatively, as I mentioned. I spotted a couple of dinosaur costumes, a few unicorns, right, John? And plenty of homemade t-shirts and banners. Everyone I spoke with had their own reason for coming: immigration, affordable health care, protecting democracy, and more. One couple I talked to worked for the federal government and told me they are currently furloughed. They said they are out here because they're feeling the effects of what's happening in their daily lives. And you know, I have to tell you, that was really a common thread. Different stories, different struggles, but a shared desire to be heard. Now, despite the size of the crowd, I can tell you everything here remained peaceful. I didn't see any counter protesters, no disruptions, no drama. HPD had officers stationed throughout the gathering site along the march route, making sure everyone stayed safe. Now, people were laughing and chanting, chatting with one another as they were making their way down Walker Street, as I mentioned. Now, you know, I've been a reporter for 8 years here at Channel 11. Of course, I've covered my fair share of protests, but one thing about the city of Houston is that these protests do have a tendency to remain quite peaceful. Something that was duly noted back in June when I covered the first No Kings protest, where about 15,000 people gathered outside of City Hall. There I ran into Mayor John Whitmire, Police Chief Noe Diaz, and they both told me at the time how proud they were of Houstonians for remaining peaceful and respectful towards each other. Of course, this is just one of dozens of rallies for No Kings that is taking place across the Houston area. But the big one, of course, is at City Hall right now underway. That is where my colleague Orko Manna is, and he'll be covering that angle. In the meantime, Devon, we're going to send it back to you.
All right, Michelle, we love to hear that things are peaceful and that there's no drama. I like the way that you phrased that. Thank you so much, Michelle. We'll be checking back in with you later on this afternoon. All right, so what you're seeing here, this is the No Kings Day protest that we are covering, and it's happening in cities across the country, obviously right here in Houston as well. It's a nationwide demonstration which organizers are calling a peaceful pushback against government overreach. Now, where Michelle was in Discovery Green, there were thousands of people that marched from there to City Hall, and that's where we find our Orko Manna this afternoon. And Orko, what are you seeing out there from the steps of City Hall?
Yeah, Devon, there are a lot of people here, thousands of people. In fact, this particular rally was supposed to start around 2 p.m. this afternoon, but even before then, several people were already out here. You can see walking through this area that we've got a lot of folks here holding their signs, everyone making sure that their voices are heard. As Michelle was saying, the whole point of this rally, this demonstration and others like it across the country is to show that people are standing united and that they're talking and fighting against what they call the authoritarianism that is growing under President Donald Trump. Walking further into the steps here in front of City Hall, you can see again a lot of people holding flags, holding signs saying, "Wake up, Americans," and other things, and everyone just saying that they don't want kings in America. Now, this kind of originates from the idea that they believe Donald Trump is acting like a British monarch, hence the name No King. So again, there are a lot of folks out here. People have even brought some chairs to sit down in. They're sitting on benches. A lot of people have brought chalk as well to write their messages on the ground. A lot of people also out here providing water and snacks, making sure everyone is hydrated. It is fairly warm out here, just shy of 90 degrees or so, but a lot of people still braving the heat to come out here. Again, you can see all of these folks out here. You can probably hear that clapping and that chanting further towards City Hall on the steps. There are some speakers that are speaking at the podium, a wide array of folks, again, letting their voices be heard by everyone who's out here. And this is a pretty wide and diverse mix. We're seeing a mix of elderly folks, younger folks, people of all races, some people who say that they wanted to come out here for their first time, and others who say that they were out here back in June as well. If we show to the left a little bit, you can see that they have some mounted patrol officers, some HPT officers on horseback. We were told by HPD earlier this week that there would be several officers here to make sure everything ran smoothly and everyone was safe, both officers in uniform and also plainclothes officers as well. And a lot of Houston police officers have blocked off the areas surrounding the City Hall annex and the City Hall building. Again, you can see some of those officers here parked along the street. And as I mentioned, not just folks inside the center part of the protest area, but there are folks just lining the sidewalks around City Hall, wearing costumes, holding signs. Since the last No Kings protest that happened back in June, there's been a lot of development when it comes to immigration and the ICE raids that a lot of folks here are protesting about. A lot of the signs that we're seeing actually directly talk about ICE and immigration. You can see one of those signs out here right now saying, "I emigrated from a country." And again, out here you can see a lot of people abolish ICE signs, people calling Trump a clown and a king of clowns. So far, we haven't seen too many profane signs, which is a good thing. But of course, as Michelle was mentioning, and Devon, you mentioned this too, you know, we can't always control what people bring to rallies, so there are some of those signs out here. But for the most part, everyone is trying to make their voices heard in the most respectful way that they can. A lot of folks bringing out their kids and their family members as well. You can see them out here lining the sidewalks. As we were talking about, this is one of several demonstrations planned throughout the country. In fact, one of more than 2,500 demonstrations planned today in major cities across the country. In Houston here, this of course is the largest rally in our area. But there are a lot of folks here who say that they wanted to make sure they came out here, even on a Saturday, even on a pretty warm Saturday for October, to make sure that they were here. We made our way back around to this front section. I want to bring in someone who I talked to a bit earlier, so just give me a moment here. We have Priscilla here. Thank you so much for joining us.
You're welcome.
You told me that you were out here in June, so talk to us about what brought you back out here today.
Well, things have gotten worse, not better. So I'll keep coming out here until something changes.
And with you being out here and with all these folks being out here, what's the big message that you want people watching this or seeing this as they pass by to take away?
That in a democracy, people have an equal voice. And I don't think any of us do right now. And so I feel like everybody's really pissed off, and that's why they're out here. I mean, I see people as young and as old, the whole spectrum, and everybody feels the same way. This is no longer just like a minority of people. It's not the old hippies that everybody's talking about. It's everybody, a majority of people. And it makes me really proud to be a Houstonian and to be a Texan.
And back in June, I believe it was something like 15,000 people that showed up. There are obviously several thousand people here right now, and we know that there are going to be more people coming throughout the evening. Are you expecting to see as big of a crowd, maybe even bigger this time around?
You know, based on all my friends, I'm actually a professor at the University of Houston, and I've told all my students to come. I think we have more momentum this time around in June. I think people were still just trying, getting used to the idea of protest because it's kind of new to us in this country. And I think now people realize that we don't really have a choice because we're losing our country. We might as well fight for it.
And as I was walking around, I was seeing a lot of people obviously holding their signs. You have your own sign here. Talk to me about kind of the decision to make this sign, what this stands for you.
I wanted to talk about democracy because I feel like that's kind of getting lost in the conversation. The idea that we're a democratic country and that people have a say in what is happening. And I feel like this is a voice that we're giving today to democracy. And so I wanted to include democracy on my sign, but also go with the No Kings theme because I feel like Trump is acting like a king and we're trying to push that away and say, no, this is a democratic country. And we belong here too.
Priscilla, thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thank you.
And Priscilla, again, is just one of many people who have been out here today, who were back out here back in June, who say that, things have just gotten worse and they want to make sure that their voices continue to be heard. We, of course, are going to stay out here and talk to several more protesters who are out here at the No Kings demonstration here in front of City Hall. But for now, Devon, we're going to send it back to you.
Orko, great coverage there outside of City Hall. I can definitely tell that there are way more people than there were in June, and I know the turnout in June was like 15,000 people. I want to ask you real quick, Orko, though, before I let you go, have you seen any counter protesters outside there at City Hall?
Yeah, Devon, that's something that I was looking for because, again, anytime there is a big demonstration, regardless of what side of the political spectrum you're on, there is bound to be potentially other people on the other side. But so far, walking around the City Hall Annex and City Hall area, we have not seen any folks who are counter-protesting, anyone holding any signs that are counter-protesting. For the most part, everyone is here for this specific reason, for the No Kings protests. So again, at this point, we haven't really seen any counter-protests, just a lot of people here protesting against Trump and the presidency, just trying to make their voices heard. We were looking, again, like I said, looking for people who were potentially counter-protesting, but at this point we haven't. Again, just a lot of folks here holding their signs, talking about the Trump regime, as they call it, and again, a lot of police out here just to make sure that nothing happens, just because, you never can tell when something could become volatile. But as Michelle mentioned, for the most part, Houston rallies and protests tend to stay relatively peaceful, as we saw back in June, and so that's definitely the case here as so far as right now. But for your question, in terms of counter-protesters, we've not seen any at this point.
All right, Orko Manna, our eyes and ears on the ground there outside of City Hall this afternoon. Orko, thank you so much. All right, before we get to some of the scenes from across the country, we just want to bring you back up to speed on what's happening here. So this is a national event that's happening in response to the Trump administration's policies. This is being called the No Kings Day protest. It's a nationwide demonstration which organizers are calling a peaceful pushback against government overreach. And with that being said, as we've been saying all afternoon, that there are several events happening in cities across the country. This is a live aerial look right now, in fact, from downtown Minneapolis, where you can see thousands of people there flooding the streets of downtown Minneapolis. Of course, this is a city that's no stranger to protests and demonstrations.